Hi folks, you're with Tacitus Today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the general issue of woke adverts. Now, we can look at Bud Light, we can look at Jaguar, Harley Davidson, the list goes on of big, well-known brand names that have turned to insane levels of woke. And disparaging their primary customer base, Gillette. The list goes on, and you think, what are these people thinking? I mean, why would they do this? What sort of mental processes would they have gone through? Now, if you look time and time again, even though these woke advertising campaigns, the people who are signing off on it are primarily I'm looking at one now. There are nine directors apparently that signed off on it, or some of these may be the senior execs as well. There are seven straight white males and two, I presume, straight women from the looks of it, and yet somehow they've signed off on this. Now, why would they do that? Why would a company that relies very heavily on male customers, why would they treat the male customers with utter disdain and derision, and have this fantasy notion they can appeal to a modern marketplace that doesn't exist, or exists in such a tiny proportion that it's irrelevant in the overall scheme of things, particularly when you're looking at bulk customers. Now, it's a little bit different here between, say, Gillette and Bud Light, because they're looking at, they have to sell millions upon millions of units of their product. Whereas a company like, say, Jaguar, they're looking at much more modest numbers, 200,000, 100,000, that sort of thing. The same would be for Harley Davidson. People don't buy Harley Davidsons at the same rate that they buy shaving products. So there's different markets and different type of perspectives. I was talking to the managing director of Maserati Australia once, and he said, look, if you're selling Fords and General Motors, you've got to sell gazillions of cars. He said we only have to sell a few hundred a year, and to the people, and we already know all their names and where they live and their addresses. So, he said, I've got the easier job than they do. And maybe in terms of volume, he does. Nonetheless, coming back to this issue, now, we notice with the trend, there's a similar trend here throughout the Bud Lights and the Jaguars and so on. Gillette's, his sales are already in decline. So the sales are in decline, and the executive team, quite rightly said, well, gee whiz, sales are going down. That's no good. We got to do something. But then it comes down to, well, what do we do? Now, there's certain sort of limitations as to what things you can do. You can create a better product. You can maybe do better packaging or something. Cut better deals with the distribution chains like the grocery stores and all that sort of thing. Or you can play around with the price, or you can do more promotions. There are things you can do, but let's say you've tried some or all of those. Maybe you haven't tried them effectively. Maybe they've been badly conducted and implemented, but nonetheless, sales are still not really responding. Maybe they've declined and then flatlined. Maybe they're continuing to decline. But as the executive team, you're going to get grilled by the boys in Wall Street. Okay, sales are in decline. What are you doing about it? So branding and advertising is something that in theory at least promises a quick return. You can push the button, pull the lever, and bingo, the sales suddenly the sales decline is suddenly arrested, or maybe sales start increasing substantially. But the advertising campaign is seen as it's the quick fix. We don't have to address any of the problems in the company. We don't have to overcome any of the obstacles. I mean, why are sales declining in the first place? Well, I know why, because we don't have enough black lesbians in our advert. Oh, hey, why didn't I think of it? Yeah, where's it? Hey, let me sign off on that. And it seems to be the dumbest thing ever. Why would anybody do it? Why would a bunch of straight white males, or primarily straight white males, or even straight white females, why would they succumb to this idea of the quick fix, as seductive as that may appear, but thinking this will be the quick. I know what we'll do. We'll just disparage our customer base, tell them they're all Nazis and Hitler and fascists. They're just fascist Nazi frat boys, and we'll start using. We'll chase the black lesbian market. What? I mean, how big is the black lesbian? If I was sitting in the chair, I would be looking at that. You've got to be kidding! What a fucking moron of an idea that is. But nonetheless, that's the idea. I'm sure it's not. It's pitched in more flattering terms than I'm describing it there. But the board of directors, the advertising agency comes in and they do an advert that's full of black lesbians and transgender this and so and so that, and men are referred to with disdain and sneering derision, and straight white men, of course, and that's the thing you sign off on. Now somehow they've been encouraged, but the management team have been encouraged to believe, well, this will fix it. This solves the problem, because there's all these people out there that all think straight white men are Nazis, and they're what? How secluded an existence must these people live in? And I'm sure when we're talking about people that are very well paid, the multi-million-dollar salaries and their stock options. I mean, so they're doing pretty good, and they'd be living in gated communities, and they wouldn't encounter the riffraff and the great unwashed, anything on. I mean, even if you look at the shops that these people shop in, the designer label shops and so on, you look at the quality of the people who serve in those sort of shops and the ones that say, work in, I don't know, Walmart or something, and there's a huge difference. So you're still not dealing with the great unwashed, even when you go out shopping at your boutique brand name, stores. So the kids will all go to private schools. There'll be tennis parties and so on in very nice areas. The men all go to the country clubs. They're not dealing with any lowlifes. So when they're pitched this thing, well, out there amongst the great unwashed, this is what's happening. This is how it is out there. And they may go, oh, okay, is it? Wow. Oh, you mean everyone thinks that Hitler's out there and they hate us. So if we do an advert saying that, so you can imagine how detached they are from any form of commercial, economic or social reality, that they would succumb or fall for such a bullshit line that, hey, if we do these black lesbian trans people, that'll solve that. Now, when it comes to something like Jaguar, which even on a good year, Jaguar was only selling like 250,000 units worldwide. This is around the whole world. So it's a fairly, elite and select group of people that are buying Jaguars, and they're more expensive car. They're not your entry level Ford or anything like that. So you're dealing with a fairly exclusive clientele, and that clientele is going to succumb to, black lesbians and transgender. I mean, really? I mean, what? I mean, is it possible? So the all-white executive management team at Jaguar signed off on this. Excuse me, I'm just going to take a sip of water here. Signed off on this, and we're not talking something as cheap. This is they had to throw quite a bit of money at it. And they're finding that sales after that campaign have declined even further. Now, to put it in some perspective, in Jaguar, they were probably in a state of panic, because a few years ago they were selling, or more than that, getting on for several years ago, they were selling like 200,000, and sales would drop into like 150,000, just round numbers here, 150,000, and then they were dropping to below 100,000. So there must have been something approaching panic in the executive suite as to, fuck, we got to stop this sales decline. What do we do? And the idea that this would solve it is beyond my comprehension. I mean, you'd have to not only be brain dead, but so removed and isolated from the real world that you would even think for a minute that this, which also suggests the advertising agency execs are similarly removed from the real world. They live in some bullshit universe where there's the Nazis and there's the morally superior people, and we're going to do an advert to appeal to the morally superior ones. I mean, is it that stupid? But I just want to talk more widely about this now. I noticed this some years ago, where competent, experienced, capable managers that had, I'm talking the senior executive suite here, that had not so much worked their way up. They were just high IQ, hardworking, diligent, capable people that would solve problems by applying their intellect, working hard at it, and trial and error and so on. And they would overcome problems just through their sheer will, intellect, sense of industry, and so on. Now, that's more how I view the world, so I'm sort of sympathetic to that type of outlook. But I saw how those people were being replaced by stooges and flunkies that were appointed by the BlackRock. So it's the influence around the corporate suite of the BlackRocks, and this is through ownership, the State Streets and Vanguards, all that sort of stuff. The big money end of town. As their influence increased, so did their desire to distribute patronage to their buddies. So they would just put their buddies in on boards of directors. They would insist that their buddies were given the CEO's job, and so on. So gradually over, certainly since the late 90s, by my take anyway, up to the present day, the quality of management declined. And their expertise levels declined, their level of intellect declined, their sense of industry and their attitude towards, their can-do attitude. All of this declined across the board, and particularly in the bigger organisations where you had, the bigger shareholdings from the BlackRocks of the world. So when these people are faced with, because they're not qualified, certainly in my view, and I have meetings with some of these people, and I'm staggered, I'm aghast at how unqualified a lot of these people are. How the fuck did you get this job? And again, being paid millions of dollars a year. Bottom line is they're just buddies with someone in the big money end of town. And now they may come from polite society and the right social circles. They've been to the right schools. There's that as well. But they seem to pick the dumbest and stupid. Now, if you're well connected into the right people in this, you don't need to. You will never have attended an interview in your life. You will never have had to face a performance evaluation, and you will never have had to worry about money or where the next meal's coming from, or whether you can, I don't know, pay the rent or something like that. You've lived a life that has been rich in income and has had almost zero risk in any way attached to it. So these are the people making these decisions as to let's run a series of black lesbian adverts to fix the sales decline. Now, what a competent management team would do is say, okay, well, why are sales declining? Well, let's have a look. Let's just go through it. Is our distribution working? We've done 100 promotions, 100 product promotions, but nothing's a why is that? Were the promotions fucked up in some way? Did we not execute it properly? Was there, because I notice a lot of things, like there are big promotion campaigns. I noticed through the grocery stores, big promotion campaigns where there's advertising and there's displays and there's catalogs and there's this and that, but there's no product. And for some reason, some incredible reason, the company has launched a very expensive promotional campaign to sell one of their products, and they're unable to deliver any product. So the whole campaign falls flat on its face because of piss poor coordination between production and delivery and distribution and promotion. They just can't get the shit together, some of these companies, which shows the level of ineptitude that must be going on there. I mean, how could you fuck something like that up? But these things happen and continue. So if I was the CEO, I'd be very methodically going through what are the reasons why sales are declining. Maybe there's more competitors. Maybe a competitor's got a better product, in which case we have to get a better product. Maybe the competitors got better prices, so we need to look at our pricing. We need to look at our cost structures. We need to look at our distribution model. We need to, there's a whole lot of things. And once you get a useless bunch of idiots in the executive suite, they tend to appoint other idiots. Look at that woman that they appointed to, she was some Jewish lady for, I think it was Bud Light, and she was talking about frat boys and they want to change the image and this sort of thing. And it came across. That's the sort of person they end up appointing to these jobs. So the executive suite then appoints at like vice president level, and that sort of thing, appoints people like that, or even worse than that. At least she did sound like she had an IQ, but they appoint those sort of people, and then that in turn stuffs up a whole lot of other things in the area, in the sheer mechanics and operational detail of running a successful multinational organization in this case. So the problems are probably many, but you need a certain amount of skill and capability and knowledge of having at least worked at some of these jobs yourself. This was one of the benefits years ago. Whenever I would say I'd go for a job interview, or I'd meet a colleague, or we'd say company A was working with my company on some commercial deal. Company I work for some commercial deal to distribute. I knew pretty much that if I was meeting the senior operations director or the marketing director or somebody, I knew I was meeting. Or no, didn't know. I could be very sure that I was going to meet a competent, skilled person who knew it, understood it, had done it, had lived it, and could talk at a certain level of knowledge and intelligence and understanding. I can't do that anymore. The chances are very high, in fact, almost guaranteed now, that when I sit down with the marketing director, she won't know a thing. She'll have no idea. If I sit down with the operations director, she, often a she now, she'll have no concept of what's happening, and it's absolutely clear that they don't. So these are the sort of people in these jobs. So most of these multinational companies are suffering from having so many people that don't know what the fuck they're doing. I'm sure they get together in the meetings and they stroke each other and all this sort of stuff, and the posturing, and I'm sure all that goes on, but none of them know what they're doing. So things are going downhill, but no one can see the signs of decline, the causes of decline, the reasons for decline. So that's why I think sales are in decline anyway, and they've got to do something, and that's why they reach for these insane, crazy black lesbian marketing campaigns. You've been with Tassus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for listening.